When I moved into my new apartment, I thought it was the beginning of something good. A spacious room, bright walls, a huge window overlooking the park. Everything was perfect, except for one thing. I needed a roommate to share the rent. And that's how Ellie came into my life. She seemed normal, not too talkative, but not withdrawn either. She worked at a bookstore, loved green tea, and wore sweaters that looked like they had been knitted by her grandmother. Overall, the perfect candidate. The first week passed without incident. We ate at different times, barely crossed paths, occasionally exchanged a few words. It seemed like everything was going smoothly, and then I started noticing oddities. At first, they were just small things. Ellie brushed her hair very thoroughly, too thoroughly. I saw her in the mornings, sitting in front of the mirror, running her brush through her hair 100 times, like in old princess movies. But the strangest part? She didn't throw away the hair left in the brush. She carefully gathered it, twisted it into thin strands, and placed it into a small box. I tried to convince myself that she just had a habit of collecting her hair, maybe for some kind of art project, like some artists do. But then I started finding hair in places where it shouldn't be, on the kitchen table, in the bathroom. Once, I even found a long, dark strand stuck between the pages of my book. And then there was Ellie's pillow. One day, I peeked into her room while she was at work. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what her style was like. The room was neat, perfectly organized, except for the pillow. It was covered in hair, as if someone had ripped out an entire lock and carefully arranged it there. I swallowed hard and stepped back. From that day on, I started watching her. The real nightmare began 3 weeks later. I came home late in the evening, exhausted from work. The apartment lights were off, and I assumed Ellie had already gone to bed. But when I stepped into my room and turned on the light, Ellie was sitting on my bed. I flinched. Jesus, you scared me. She lifted her head. Sorry, I was waiting for you. I frowned. Why? She slowly raised her hand. Between her fingers, she held a thin strand of hair. My hair. I felt my breath hitch. Where did you get that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. From the sink, Ellie answered calmly. You cleaned your brush. And before I could say anything, she lifted the hair to her mouth and placed it on her tongue. I froze, watching as she slowly chewed, lazily rolling it around in her mouth, as if savoring the taste. What are you? My throat went dry. Are you eating it? She nodded. Yes, it's soothing. My stomach twisted into a knot. That's not normal, Ellie. People don't eat hair. She shrugged. Everyone has their habits. I felt like I needed to leave, right now. I walked out of the room, closing the door behind me. I turned on the shower and stood under the hot water, trying to wash away the sticky feeling of horror. When I returned to my bedroom, Ellie was gone, but on my pillow lay a neatly twisted strand of hair. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, Ellie's face appeared in my mind, her calm, almost indifferent expression as she slowly chewed my hair. What the hell was wrong with her? I Googled it, trichophagia, an obsessive urge to eat hair. It's usually accompanied by trichotillomania, the habit of pulling hair out. If a person eats too much hair, it can accumulate in their stomach, forming a massive ball that blocks digestion. Sometimes these people die if they don't get medical help in time. But what Ellie was doing seemed beyond a simple disorder. She wasn't just eating her own hair, she was eating mine. For the next few days, I tried to stay away from her. We barely spoke. She didn't ask why I had become distant, and that made it even more unsettling. But one night, everything changed. I woke up to a strange sensation, as if someone was touching my hair. My eyes snapped open, and I saw Ellie. She was sitting next to my bed, In one hand, she held a pair of scissors. In the other, a thin strand of my hair. I screamed and jerked back, nearly falling off the bed. "What the hell are you doing?" Ellie didn't even flinch. "It's so soft," she whispered. Panic surged through me. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed the beam directly at her face. Her eyes gleamed, but she didn't look away. "Get out, Ellie," I shouted. She slowly stood up and walked toward the door. But before leaving, she whispered, "You know they'll grow back, right?" I slammed the door in her face and locked every single bolt I had. In the morning, I called the police. 2 officers arrived 2 hours later. I told them everything about the hair, the scissors, how Ellie sneaked into my room at night. They exchanged glances. "Look," one of them sighed. "Yeah, it's creepy, but technically, she hasn't broken any laws." "Hasn't broken any laws? She's eating my hair." "Well, that's not exactly a crime." "And the fact that she came into my room at night with scissors?" The officer shrugged. "She could say she was just playing a prank on you, or got confused about which door was hers." "Got confused about the door?" They exchanged glances again. "You can file a report if you want." "Of course I want to." I wrote the report. They shook my hand and left, and I was alone, in the apartment, with Ellie. When I went back inside, she wasn't home, but her door was slightly open. I took a step inside. Her room was disturbingly empty. Almost nothing personal, just a bed, a dresser, and a small table. And a box, the same box where she collected her hair. I didn't want to open it, but I did. Inside were tangled clumps of hair, and at the very bottom, a ball tied with red thread. I picked it up with 2 fingers, feeling a wave of nausea twist my stomach. It was solid, as if it had been left in something wet for too long and had hardened. At the bottom of the box lay a note. Neat, careful handwriting. "You know they'll grow back, right?" I dropped the box. The ball of hair rolled across the floor, making a sinister rustling sound against the wooden planks. My breath caught in my throat. Why the hell was I still here? I bolted out of her room and slammed the door shut. Immediately, I started shoving my things into a bag. I didn't care that the rent was paid. I didn't care that I had no idea where I was going. I just knew I couldn't spend another second in that apartment. That night, I stayed in a hotel. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ellie's empty stare, the scissors in her hands, the ball of hair in the box. I wanted to forget, but I couldn't. I had to make sure she was gone. The next day, I went back to the apartment. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. I carefully walked down the hallway. Ellie's bedroom door was slightly open. I pushed it. Empty. The room looked like no one had ever lived there. But one thing was different. On the bed lay a strand of hair and a pair of scissors. And on the wall, written in tiny, careful handwriting, "You know they'll grow back, right?" I never saw her again. I moved to another city, changed my number, deleted my social media. But sometimes, I find a long dark hair in the strangest places, on my pillow, in the sink, in the pocket of my coat. I don't know how it gets there, but every time I find one, I feel like somewhere, in the darkness, Ellie is smiling. The end.